Every year since 2006, Gallup has surveyed people around the world about their levels of stress, sadness, pain, and worry. A few weeks ago, Gallup released their 2022 Global Emotions Survey results, in which they measured the highest level of global unhappiness since they began doing the survey 16 years ago. When you look at their data, called the Negative Experience Index, the world's level of unhappiness was essentially flat from 2006 through 2011, but since 2011 the world has become increasingly less happy. In this video, I'm going to explain why I believe this is happening. I don't claim to have all the answers. I am genuinely interested in knowing what your thoughts are, and if you agree with me or if you disagree with me, if you think I'm on target or if you think I'm way off base, please leave a comment in the comment section below and let me know your thoughts on this very important topic. The first thing I want to do is determine, is Gallup's data realistic? Gallup is a highly respected polling organization, and so their data is probably good, but I want to look at some data from the United States to see, is it consistent with what Gallup is finding in their survey, or is there evidence to the contrary? For the sake of time, I'm just going to look at the United States to see if the US data is consistent with what Gallup is reporting from around the world. One indicator of national happiness might be the number of people in the United States taking antidepressants. According to a 2017 article posted on CBS News, between 1999 and 2014, the number of Americans taking antidepressants increased by a whopping 65%. And if we look at the antidepressant market globally, there is really good news if you're big pharma. Antidepressants are a growth industry, with global sales expected to increase by 34% between 2021 and 2025. So just looking at the increased use of antidepressants both in the United States and worldwide, that seems to be consistent with what we would expect if the world is becoming less happy. But sales of antidepressants don't tell the whole story. What if we look at death by suicide in the United States? According to the Center for Disease Control, in 2020 alone, nearly 46,000 people in the United States took their own lives, and another 1.2 million attempted to take their own lives. Again, using data from the CDC, we see that suicide is the second leading cause of death in the United States for people aged 10 to 24, and accounts for almost 1 in 5 deaths for people in that age range. Additionally, suicide is the second leading cause of death in the United States for people aged 25 to 44, and accounts for 11% of the deaths of people in that age range. So for people between age 10 and 44, the only more common cause of death is unintentional injuries. But what exactly does that include? If we look at deaths in the United States caused by drug overdoses, the CDC reports 91,799 people lost their lives to drug overdoses in 2020 alone. In fact, if you look at the trend from 2000 to 2020, you'll see the number of people who died either from suicide or drug overdose has nearly tripled in the past 20 years. I do want to clarify on this slide that a small percentage of drug overdose deaths may also be counted among the suicide deaths. There is sometimes a blurry line between an accidental death by drug overdose and an intentional suicide by drug overdose. The bottom line is, while there may be a few deaths double counted in this graph, the number of people dying by suicide and accidental drug overdose has nearly tripled over the past 20 years. So along with the increased usage of antidepressants, all of this data appears to be consistent with the findings of the Gallup organization, at least for the United States. So back to the question at hand, what is driving the rise in global unhappiness? There has always been unhappiness, just as there have always been wars, famine, disease, and poverty. But something appears to have happened to the world around 2011 that started driving up unhappiness, and it is continuing to build. And as obvious as this is, I feel compelled to point out that 2011 was well before COVID-19 and before the 2016 and 2020 US presidential elections. So what happened in 2011? I believe the simple answer is a whole lot of things. When I began my research for this video, I posted on LinkedIn a question. I posted a link to the report from Gallup along with a question asking people on LinkedIn, what do you think is driving up global unhappiness? Many explanations were offered, including climate change, food insecurity, a constant stream of bad news 24/7, economic hardships, people becoming less tolerant of each other's opinions. There were numerous answers offered to this question. My personal favorite was a theory that somebody suggested on LinkedIn that the Mayan calendar ended in 2012 and maybe they were on to something. I think that was meant as a joke, but somebody did mention it. While I cannot quantify the impact of each of these factors, I do think there is a lot of merit in most, if not all, of the ideas that were suggested on LinkedIn. Let me repeat that. I don't think there is a single cause to global unhappiness increasing over the past decade. I think there are many causes. But from my research, I believe there is one dominant cause. The biggest cause of all, I believe, is the ripple effect of big tech on our individual lives. Before I go any further, I want to clarify, I am not against technology. My PhD is in technology leadership and innovation. I have 2 patents. I have taught classes in innovation and product design, but as I told my students, technology is neutral. Technology is just a tool. Just as a scalpel can be used for saving a life or taking a life, just as nuclear energy can be used for powering a city or vaporizing a city, technology is neutral. So I am not against technology, but it is something that we have to make sure that we are using it and that it, or the people that develop it, are not using us. It is what somebody does with technology that makes it either beneficial to society or harmful to society. What do I mean by big tech? Well, in particular, I mean smartphones and all the related products and services such as headphones, social media, and streaming services. If you look at smartphone sales from 2011 to 2021, there have been 13.7 billion smartphones sold around the world. In just the past 5 years, there have been 7.4 billion smartphones sold, nearly one for every man, woman, and child in the world. Here in the United States, between 2011 and 2021, the market penetration of smartphones increased from 34% to 91%. Now, I can already hear some of you saying, or at least thinking, hold on there, just because smartphone sales dramatically increased as global happiness began to increase does not prove anything. And you are 100% correct. There is a strong positive correlation between market penetration of smartphones and global unhappiness. But correlation does not equal causation. And I am completely aware of that. I stress this to my students regularly in my statistics classes and data analytics classes that I teach. To illustrate what I mean, let's do a short thought experiment. If someone builds a factory near a river and a couple of months later a bunch of dead fish are found floating a little downstream from the factory, that does not prove the new factory is responsible for the fish. At this point, we don't have a mechanism. We can't explain what about the factory may have contributed to the death of the fish. So it doesn't prove the factory is at fault, but it would certainly raise questions. It would probably prompt us to do a little more investigation. Let's assume that we search the riverbanks upstream of where the dead fish were found floating, and near the factory we find a drainage tile that runs from the factory into the river, and we do some water testing of the water coming out of that drainage pipe, and we find trace amounts of chemicals that are toxic to fish. We now have a mechanism to explain how the factory may be contributing to the death of the fish. So if, and I stress if, smartphone sales are related to the rise in global unhappiness, we need to be able to find a mechanism to tie the two together. And I believe that I have. In fact, in this video, I'm going to look at 4 distinct mechanisms that I believe tie smartphones to global unhappiness. The first mechanism is the number of hours of screen time people spend with their phones. I know Facebook recently changed their name to Meta, but for purposes of this video, I'm going to refer to them by the name they were known as between 2011 and 2021. Facebook alone has 3 billion users around the world. 264 million of them are in the United States, and they self-report spending an average of 33 minutes per day on Facebook. That is 145 million people hours spent per day just on Facebook. If we expand beyond Facebook and look at the top 5 social media platforms, we see users of each platform spend about 30 minutes a day on each of these platforms. In just the United States, on just the top 5 social media platforms, Americans collectively spend 327 million hours per day, or 37,000 people years per day on social media. That's the equivalent of 472 people spending 24 hours a day, 7 days a week for 79 years. 472 entire lifetimes are spent on social media every single day. And that's just in the United States. Worldwide and across all social media platforms, by 2021, the average internet user was spending 145 minutes per day, just shy of 2.5 hours per day on social media. Where is that time coming from? For some people, part of it's coming from time that they would have spent sleeping. Lack of sleep is linked to depression, obesity, type 2 diabetes, cardiovascular disease, and many other physical and mental health problems. Additionally, drowsy driving is estimated to cause 1,500 deaths and 40,000 injuries just in the United States every year. But for most people, the majority of that 2.5 hours they spend on social media comes from time that they used to spend living their lives and connecting with other people in person, rather than online where all their communications can be monetized by social media platforms. That leads to the next mechanism for unhappiness. What are people doing on social media for 2.5 hours per day? The answer to that is clear from looking at the growth in revenue from Facebook between 2011 and 2021. Facebook's annual revenue increased from about $5 billion a year to about $120 billion a year during that time. Why? Because as more people joined Facebook and Facebook collected more information about their users, Facebook was able to sell more ads. While you probably don't use social media to see ads, ads are a part of the experience and the reason why social media is free to use. And I should put free in air quotes because you aren't paying with your wallet directly. You're paying for it with your attention, which ultimately impacts your wallet. According to a 2017 Forbes article, digital marketing experts estimated most Americans were exposed to around 4,000 to 10,000 ads per day, and that was 5 years ago in 2017. If we look at social media advertising spending per internet user in the United States, we see that social media spending has more than tripled between 2017 and 2022, and it's predicted to continue increasing through 2026. Why? Because social media advertising is highly targeted. Companies are not paying hundreds of thousands of dollars to run a single TV commercial during a sporting event in hopes that someone watching will want their product. Social media tracks your likes, your posts, your browsing history, etc. to predict what you want. Then in essence, they rent your eyeballs to advertisers based on everything they know about you and what you might be interested in buying right now. It is highly effective, and that's why digital marketing has grown so much so quickly. The whole purpose of those thousands of ads you see every day is to generate demand for products and services. Marketing companies do this by raising awareness of a problem by their definition, such as getting stains out of carpet or opening jars of pickles. Advertisements are designed, they're actually designed to produce discontent so that you're going to want their product or their service to fix the problem that you didn't even know was a problem until you saw their ad. Are you feeling down? The simple solution, open happiness. Do you feel like a lonely loser? Drink Heineken and you can feel just a little bit more like James Bond. Are you too tired or lazy to get up and turn on a light? Just clap your hands and the clapper will turn the light on and off for you. And for those of you under 40 that don't know what a clapper is, it was the forerunner to Alexa and Siri. Now we don't even have to clap our hands to turn lights on and off. We can just speak and it happens. I'm sure there are some of you watching right now who are thinking, but I just ignore the ads. And if that's true, that's good. But that's not the case for most people. Let's look at some interesting things that happened around the time when people started spending more and more time online. First is the rise of the reality TV hoarding shows like Hoarders on A&E and Hoarding Buried Alive on TLC. Now, I fully realize hoarding was a thing long before most people had ever heard of the internet. And there are mental disorders associated with hoarding. I'm not really talking about the hoarders themselves. I'm talking about the interest that people had in the subject of hoarding that made a TV show about hoarding a viable entertainment option. Why did people start thinking about hoarding enough in 2009 and 2010 that two cable networks decided to create reality TV shows about it? Well, that was a precursor to the decluttering movement. I used trends.google.com to see how often people were searching for the term decluttering over the past 18 years. And I found that around 2012, people started doing a lot more searches for decluttering. Around that same time, there was an explosion in books written on the subject of decluttering. Why? Because people were buying so much stuff it wouldn't fit in their houses anymore. If you look at the construction spending on self-storage facilities in the United States, in 2011, only about $200 million was spent building new self-storage units. By 2018, construction spending was up to $5 billion a year. That's a 2,500% increase in annual construction spending in just 7 years. And where did people get all the money to buy all the things that were causing their homes to overflow? Well, credit cards, of course. Between 2008 and 2012, Americans were actually paying down their credit card debt. But between 2013 and 2022, Americans added over $200 billion to our collective credit card debt. In the famous words of financial common sense evangelist Dave Ramsey, we buy things we don't need with money we don't have to impress people we don't like. So our first two mechanisms that connect smartphones to unhappiness is screen time stealing away time for other activities and the nonstop assault on our eyeballs from highly targeted ads that make us want to go out and buy things. But there's more. Our smartphones contribute to social isolation. Even when we aren't looking at our phones, we're still oftentimes listening to them. Annual sales of headphones have been increasing every year since 2013. And in just the past 2 years, people around the world have purchased nearly 1.1 billion pairs of headphones. What are they listening to? Well, streaming services, Spotify, Pandora, Apple Music, etc. Since 2013, there has also been a huge increase in people listening to podcasts. And I have nothing against podcasts. I listen to them myself. Today, an estimated 140 million Americans listen to podcasts at least once a month. I was recently on a beach in Marco Island, Florida, and I noticed people walking along the beach, even sharing blankets with each other on the beach, and everyone was wearing headphones, listening in their own little acoustic bubble. Time that used to be spent in simple conversation and building human connection, sharing experiences, is now being consumed alone, listening to whatever we want to listen to and tuning out the outside world. People aren't listening to the sound of the ocean waves crashing into the beach. People aren't listening to the sounds of nature. People aren't listening to the person on the blanket next to them. They're in their own little world. The last mechanism I want to highlight in this video is that our smartphones connect us 24/7 to a stream of breaking news and partisan spin from not just here in the United States, but around the world. I mentioned a moment ago that 140 million Americans are listening to podcasts. What exactly are they listening to for millions of hours per day? 21% of podcasts are news-oriented, and another 16% is politics. Together, that's 37% of all podcasts are news or political, and in today's environment, I seriously don't even know where one ends and the other begins. Here is my reminder for everyone. Not everything is breaking news. News programs, and especially the 24-hour cable news channels, are notorious for trying to hold viewers' attention longer by constantly teasing the latest developments or expert commentary on issues that don't impact most people's daily lives. In my last video, in which I fact-checked the song Big Box Mart, I introduced a recurring theme to my videos: choose wisely. And I want to encourage you to choose wisely when it comes to using your smartphone. Specifically, choose to limit your screen time, especially on social media. Choose real conversations with real people over arguments with trolls on the internet. Be conscious of the ads and the news you surround yourself with and how it's affecting you. And choose to disconnect from time to time from big tech and reconnect with nature, others, and yourself. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to my channel, and leave a comment below about whether you agree with my analysis or if you think I overlooked something important. By liking, subscribing, and commenting, you will automatically be entered into a drawing for a free American-made 32-ounce Epic filtered water bottle worth $45. Also, I am available for speaking at your company or organization's events. You can connect with me via LinkedIn. My link is in the show notes below, along with links to all of the data that I've presented in this video. Thank you for watching, and remember, choose wisely.